All right, everyone, welcome back for another episode of A Desire to Inspire. Super thrilled about my guest today, Jesse Waits, American entrepreneur, nightlife mogul. God, your impact here in the city, Jesse, as we've just talked about, has changed the lives, I think, of millions of people worldwide. And for me specifically, this is my hometown. I grew up here. I grew up a mile east of the Las Vegas Strip, and I've watched everything blossom into what it is today. And you have been at the forefront of some of the most transformative nightlife outlets in the world. Um, Before we get into all that stuff, I want to know how you kind of describe yourself and your bio, and kind of tell me about your early beginnings. You know, I know you came from Hawaii, you moved to California, and then you went a little bit more west, went to Vegas, and now you're settled here doing some amazing things. So you can kind of talk to me about all that stuff, my friend?
Yeah, for sure. And it's good to be on the show, Manny. So it's hard to describe myself because I'm like, more of a shy, I guess, humble person, but I can tell you my story basically from the beginning, and my family story. But we came from like very humble beginnings. My dad was in, Vietnam. He's a Vietnam vet. My mom was like some socialite living in Laguna Beach. They met. Um, my dad came out of the army and wanted to be a hippie in the movement and the whole thing like that. So we ended up, living on a farm in Missouri for a few months when I was born, and then moved to Hawaii when I was very young, maybe like 3 months old. My brother and I and my sister and my mother and father. And then from there, like kind of moved back and forth to California. My mother passed away when we were very young, and then my dad raised us for the rest of his basically maybe we're until we're 13 or 14. And then he got into some bad stuff, like an accident at work. And then from there, got into some, like harder drugs and stuff like that. So my brother and I were basically on our own, surviving, getting by and stuff. We both dropped out of high school in like ninth grade and ended up getting our GEDs and, having to work to support ourselves at a young age. So, I ended up moving back to Hawaii from California, and my brother stayed in California. I like surfed and just kind of detoxed and from like the LA life basically. And at 21, I made a decision to move to Las Vegas. I visited a couple of times, and I just love the energy and the people and the opportunities. So I moved here with a few $1,000s and like a dog and like a duffel bag, with clothes or whatever.
Right.
So I'm like looking around, like, what do I do next? So I find this job at a snowboard resort. I was like a really good snowboarder at the time, from living in California, and I was an instructor for a while, and then from there I like found a job in a restaurant called Planet Hollywood at Caesar's Palace, and I was like a host, and then I from there like evolved in 9 months to like a bar back, a waiter. I was a trainer for the waiters, and my 9 months just because my work ethics were so strong, and like I was like so hungry and ambitious to move forward. And then from there, our boss basically moved to another venue called House of Blues, and he took a couple people, and I was one of the people he took. And so I started over as a bar back there at like 20. I think I was still 21, and then I ended up being a bartender and promoting and all that stuff, and evolved there again and just working really hard, kept my nose down. And when there was work to do, I was the first one to volunteer to do it. And there's anything happening, I was always there to support it and be positive and promoting our bar and our club and all that stuff and creating our nights. And I ended up being like 4 walling events with this place called Foundation Room, with some friends, and then moving on with a guy named Andy Massey to Light at the Bellagio. And then from there, I was like, bartending and hosting and all that stuff. And then left to Dre's and blah, blah, blah. From Dre's, I went to the Wen with Victor as a partner at Trist. And I was, I think, 28 years old. And I was a partner there. So I was like one of the youngest owners of a nightclub in the city at the time. Um, but I had done it all. I was, from bartender, bar back, hosting. I mean, every single position you could have in a nightclub and restaurant and bar, I was doing it. I'd worked in a place called Double Down as like a side job before. I was like a hipster bar. I was a general manager. I was a manager. I mean, a VIP manager. I did all that stuff in the 9 years before I was a partner. And then we evolved into a bigger space called Excess. And that was, one of the most successful nightclubs for 7 years in the country, arguably in the world. Highest revenue for sure. And then now I'm here. I'm at this new place called Alon. It's a resort, lifestyle resort with James Packer and Andrew Pascal. And now we are, due to open in about 3 years.
Great. Congratulations on all your success. I applaud you, not to mention appreciate you for everything that you've done. One thing I do know about you is that you're a very humbled and genuine person. Soft-spoken, you said, kind of shy as most of the reports have come out. You've even said it yourself. But I want to go back to a point because I know this much the same in my life. And you said that your mother passed away at a young age, as did mine. I lost my mother at 10. She was pretty much out of my life since I was 5. And I want to know if that had an impact on your life, on your drive, on the work ethic that you instilled in yourself to keep you moving forward as you made your way through the ranks.
I was so young. I was 5 that I don't know that it made a difference. I mean, obviously it goes through your mind, like, what if, you had that person in your life, but I don't know that it made a difference. I mean, everything that happens in your life, I'm not going to say it happens for a reason, but it happens and it makes you either stronger or it changes your direction of course in your life. And I think that, there's a saying that I really believe in. It's like, life is what you make of it. So really you dictate your direction of your life. So if you want good things to happen, you have to make it happen. If you want something, you have to make it happen. And there's like, many examples of people that have moved, to America or Las Vegas or LA, whatever it is, and have made, decisions to work really hard and be successful and be happy. And that's like, that's the message I would say that I'm trying to give at this moment.
So what was going on in your head during those earlier years when you took the first restaurant job and you kept making progressive moves? Were you making decisions that you wanted to accomplish some sort of a goal, or were you just kind of busting your butt to a point where each time the opportunity came, you were the right guy for the position?
There's like, I had friends I started with, I had met in Las Vegas. They're like semi-roommate or whatever. He was like a prime example. He's tall, good-looking guy, like very charismatic, well-spoken, and like fun, happy guy that like could talk himself into any situation. And he was the guy that always would work. We work almost at the same places all the time. And he was a guy that was working in a better position. Like, I was a bar back and he was a bartender, whatever it was. I was like the lower position because I would just go in, I'd take the job that was, I felt like would work for me and that I can get. And he was always talking himself into a bigger situation. And he was always, it seemed like he'd like flunked out of it, and I'd work myself past that. And to the point where I was the owner of a nightclub and he was a host for me, it just, so in these positions, I would say, yeah, I mean, I took a job that I felt that I was comfortable with. And then when I never asked for, a raise, I'd never asked for a higher position. It was just kind of given because I was a guy that worked so hard for it. It wasn't like a default, oh, this thing's gone, let's fill in the space with Jesse. It was more like, this guy worked really fucking hard, let's give him this position,
Right. So what do you think you can attribute that drive to? What gives you the drive to want to succeed so badly?
I mean, I think your base is like everything. So, me growing up, I was always driven to be, better than the rest. And I'm super competitive, I think, in the beginning, but I always wanted to succeed and I always wanted to prove everyone wrong. So people, where I grew up, a very small town, because my family didn't do well. My father was like, doing, hard drugs and stuff. They kind of looked at me as like a drug addict or the bad kid, which I didn't do drugs growing up. And that was like one of the reasons I didn't. I was like, I don't want to be like, it was like, fuck the world type thing, I'm going to be different than what everybody expects. So I just was like, prove everybody wrong and be better and more successful. And I hate to say that I'm like hold a grudge on people, but like I love to see the people that like looked at me differently or treated me poorly, and kind of like, you know, not like say I told you so or shove it in the face, but it's a nice feeling to, you know, see the position I am in certain times and where they're at. And you know, that was a big thing to me, I guess.
Hey, Jesse, can you do me a huge favor and just scoot over just a little bit so I can get you in the, there we go. Perfect, my man. I'm sorry, I was losing your face there. I want to see your mug. I understand. Listen, I get it. You know, oftentimes our childhood really dictates the person that we become in early adulthood, even through the growing years past that. And as I mentioned earlier, you know, this reflection back into time and discovering why we are the way that we are really helps you start to make some change in your life. And sounds like you, from an early point, figured out that you wanted to win. You were just a competitive guy. You were ready to take on whatever it was. So that's awesome. Was your father an influence in your life? Did he have any kind of an impact, or was he just there and providing as he could best to his ability?
My father was a huge influence. He was very humble. He was very respectful. He was conscious of the planet and health and like racism, everything. I mean, he was very conscious of other people. He's a very sensitive person, and I think that instilled a lot of, you know, of my base, basically, you know. And I think I really do think from a young age, what your parents teach you and you know, the influences are a big impact on you. So yeah, I mean, when he was there, and he was the best father ever. When, you know, things went bad, he just kind of like faded out. But that was parts at a certain time of my age I can like figure out my own. You know, I was at 13, 14. You kind of have like a bearing enough to like figure things out for yourself.
Right. Listen, my father was the biggest influence in my life. He today is, now that I'm older, I want to do nothing other than show him more and more love and more attention, and basically repay him for everything that he ever did for me. Even though it wasn't much, I just know that he did everything he could to make me the best man I could. Whether or not I made the right decisions, that's a whole different story. He still gave me the autonomy and the freedom to become the man that I am, and I thank him, you know, every single day. So it's such a great.
I mean, it's everything. Like, you know, like love is everything. So if you feel loved and you teach love, then I mean, that's what people want. They aspire that, you know, that's what, I mean, everything needs that. Your animals, your friends, your family, your, you know, your partners, whatever it is, they, you know, people, that's what makes people feel the most.
That's great point. You know, how can a man take on this idea of love and remove himself from the ego of feeling like he's too tough for it, and become vulnerable so that he can be a purveyor of love, give it, receive it? Because it's difficult, right? I mean, most of the time, if you ask a man about love, he'll be like, I'm too tough. I don't want to talk about that. I can't. But you said it perfectly. Everything is love. And truthfully, it really is. It's the strongest emotion that we live by. You know, without it, I think all things are meaningless. And so do you have a way of describing that in any way or form?
I mean, explain how love impacts your
life. I mean,
or
what's your thoughts on love? So talk to me about what your definition of self-love is, if that's.
I mean, love for yourself is respect. You know, like everybody has a different version of it, I think, but it's the same base. I think that that some people love themselves too much and some not enough. You know, and you have people that are like super insecure and have, you know, issues that way, or they have some people that have that are like narcissistic almost. But so I think if there's a balance, yeah, I mean, you know, to me, it's like, you know, loving yourself and loving others is like, you know, it's a quality that some people have more of and some have less. So the ones that have more, I think, have better things and a better surrounding, and they have, you know, a better friend base. They have, you know, a stronger relationship to people. And I think that I'm like, for things like karma and stuff, I don't believe in that stuff really. I just believe in that when you surround yourself with good people, the good things are going to happen, like positive things. When you're a negative person and you think negatively, that's kind of the stuff that comes back to you basically.
Yeah, absolutely. I had this friend back in my party days, actually when I was working at XS. He was my running buddy, and I've known him since high school. He was my boy, and he was the biggest liar, the biggest guy who blew money. He was no good. And the day that I dropped him out of my life, I think everything changed. And the more work that I do on personal growth and personal development, transformation, I always hear these analogies that go, if you're the fifth of if you've got 4 broke friends and you're the fifth, and you're going to be 4. It's the same thing that goes on over and over again. And it's so true. If you're your friend, you're going to be the 5th negative person. For that, you got to just rid them all. So I totally understand what you mean by that, man. I did some homework on you. I read some articles, and everything that always comes out of your mouth is always about how you love people. You're a people pleaser. And I love that about you, man. I think that's so awesome. I want to know what it is about people that you love so much. What is it that fascinates you about the human being and the spirit?
I don't know what it is. I think I'm a people pleaser because just like everyone else, I want acceptance, or I want to be liked. And I think when I make people feel great about things, it makes me feel good. I really like feeling good about myself. So when I have other people feeling great and they appreciate me, it makes me feel amazing, Right. So I think another thing is that a gift maybe is I'm very sensitive to people's feelings and what they like, and I can read people really well. And I think, one of the major things I've learned in the business is reading people and profiling people. That's kind of your job in our business, that we do is profile. You look at somebody walking up and it's their swagger, their walk, they talk, what they wear, their shoes, their watch, it's everything combined, and you can kind of okay, this person's this, and right away in a half second who that person is,
Right.
And me being uber sensitive to people in the first place helps tremendously. So I mean, it just, I like making people happy, and that's, part of, I give this love, and, wearing your heart on your sleeve type thing, and being sensitive to others and their feelings, and, and their needs. And sometimes it's good and sometimes it's bad. And the bad things is sometimes you open up too much to people too fast and they take advantage of it,
Yeah.
But that's the thing I've learned in this business too, and this city especially, because Las Vegas is a tough city and full of people that are trying to take all the time, and con artists, and they say to this person that, that's when you learn the profiling and all these other things together help, block out some people and accept others. And then, but you still want to be loved and love people, and, let them in, and, with girlfriends, just give it all, and, move fast and all that stuff.
Right. Totally.
Then you're drive through weddings and stuff, That's
Well, at least we know that you're a human being, man. We've always known that you're just a good dude, man, which is what we need more of in this world. And, I'm so glad that we're doing this, dude, because I really look, and I told you this a few minutes ago before we started this interview. I know you've done a lot of nightlife interviews. I don't want this to be about the business too much. There's probably going to be a few questions that pop up, but I want to know more about the human that exists at the core of Jesse Waits and what drives this man, because that's more interesting to me than, $100 million nightclub. But, there's all kinds of businesses that run $100 million revenue systems and all that stuff. Well, it's fascinating and I appreciate it. The person that actually drives it is what's more cool to me. So I want to ask you this question as well. Because you're in this ego town, and you've been all over the globe, probably around these takers, people wanting to just take. How have you been able to stay so humble and refrain from developing an ego? I guess you could say most people in this town would when they get these positions of power, and maintain that level of equilibrium where you're just you. How have you done it? What's your strategy in that?
How I feel about it, and I'll try to simplify it, is I'm the guy that won't dance in a nightclub because I look at the other guys dancing and I'm like, wow, that guy looks like an idiot. I'm not saying I judge people, but I'm just using that as a reference. So when I see people, I mean, to put it in perspective, when I see people that have massive egos and they're takers, and the way they make people feel and the way they treat people and the way it makes me feel, then I don't want to be that person, you know? And I look at other people too as like, if they're treating, fine, you're going to treat me great, and that's fine. But I look at the way that you treat everybody else around you. Because you need something from me or want something from me, doesn't mean that I'm special. It just means that you want what I have, type thing. So, I mean, I just want to be that person. I want to be the guy that's like people like and love, and I want a good reputation. Like in our business, my business, and you say you don't want to talk about nightclubs, but obviously nightclubs is such a big part, or not just nightclubs, but your job is such a big part of your life. I'd say it's like 80% of what your life, especially if you're, you want to be successful. It's more, it's like, 95% of your life. You like eat, breathe, sleep. It's a lifestyle to be successful. You can't just do something and it works out. You win the lottery, that's one,
Yeah.
but that's not going to happen to everybody, So, but success is something different. And I think for me, my success was, if I was to be an asshole to everybody, and I know a lot of those guys in the business, then I wouldn't make it. But those guys have different qualities that I don't have. Like maybe their qualities to be shrewd and like take advantage of people and, talk their way into situations where mine's not. Mine was always, a different situation where, my qualities were to be, again, a people pleaser, people happy and hospitality. And so it's kind of what's gotten me this far, and I believe in it. So I'll stand by it, and that's what my future is.
Yeah, it sounds like you've got a very sound way of understanding yourself, which I like to call self-awareness, right? I mean, that's step one into knowing what you're in tune with yourself. Do you have specific tools or ways of getting to know yourself better, or can you offer up some suggestions to somebody that might be listening that would need to discover a bit more about themselves? Have you done anything in the past? Has something worked for you more so that stood out that you can talk about? What just happened? I just lost you for a second.
Yeah, I'm back.
Are you back?
I'm here.
Did you hear that question?
No, I didn't. I missed it.
I said, well, we're back. We lost communication there for about 5-10 seconds. So, back on track here. I was saying that because you sound self-aware, like you're so in tune with who you are and what you want out of yourself and for life, with success in your professional life, what would you offer up as some suggestions or are some good ways for somebody that might be listening to get to know themselves better? Are there ways that you've done this in the past or something that might stand out that you could talk about with us?
Yeah, I think like self-confidence is something that's really important. I think, that we had a conversation before, you and I, that, if you're drinking or you're doing drugs, you're partying and stuff like that, you kind of like lose yourself and you lose like touch of what's happening with your surroundings, and you lose, perspective of life, and, things kind of just go and you just go with the flow, and, whatever it is. I think to be in touch and in tune with yourself, you have to really, you have to feel and you have to think about what makes you happy. I mean, happiness is everything in life, So one big thing I think, as a message for me is having a goal. And if you have a goal, then you're going to, you kind of like build a formula around that to reach it. And it is what it is. Like if it's like this job and this, and to save money or to buy that, or to look a certain way or speak a certain way, or like get an education in certain things, then that's what you have to do to get to that goal. Then that's what it is, and without it, I think you're lost. So I think there's a combination of things that's important to, to be yourself and to be genuine. Like if you want to be, I don't know, it's a really hard question, I think, to kind of explain, that side of it.
Right. Well, I love how you brought up goals, because everybody, I think, goals paint our future in advance to kind of give us the straight line direction to get from where we are to where we want to be. And in that, I have to ask you, what are some of Jesse Waite's goals? If you have any short-term, mid-term, long-term, big things. I mean, I'm sure you've got a whole list that's been crossed off, but I'm sure there's some big ones that you still have on the horizon that you want to achieve.
It's funny. I when I moved before I moved to Las Vegas, I sat in my kitchen every morning and I drink coffee and I go surf. And in the morning, when I drink coffee, I would sit there and I'd write like the things I wanted. Like I had a little textbook, and like I wrote where I wanted to live. And I had like, I had like real estate magazines from Las Vegas, and I had like a car finder from, the magazine. And I had all these things. I was like, okay, I want this, I want this, I want this. And like, kind of like Chinese menu, picked out like what I wanted. And I figured out like all these things. And that was my goal, And I was like, okay, wow, I got to Vegas and I accomplished this stuff pretty quickly. And I was like, shit, like, what do I do now? Like, what is my next goal? And so it was like, okay, I want to be an owner of a nightclub. That was my thing, And then it happened eventually. And then since I was an owner of a nightclub, I just kind of like lost myself for a while. Like I think all the hard work and the stress and all that stuff, maybe it's like, okay, I climbed this mountain, I'm going to enjoy it for a while. And I enjoyed it for a few years. And I was like drinking a little bit and partying and going to like different places and, traveling. And then I had to like, figure it out again. Some stuff happened, like when my brother left, and my partner, my senior partner, Victor Dre, he had left to, he had a thing with Steve Wynn, and I was kind of like left, at the end holding the bag. And it was like a huge like wake up call for me, and that's when I decided like, yeah, I need to make some changes in my life. Like an epiphany almost. Like with this one day, I was like just not feeling great. I wasn't in good shape. I was like, lethargic and tired. It took me like an hour to get out of bed. I was like, kind of depressed. Not kind of, I was actually really depressed about a lot of things that were happening. Even though I was on the top of this mountain, I was like, I climbed Mount Everest, and like the most successful nightclub ever. Right. I was still doing it. I was like still pushing through it, but I wasn't happy anymore. So then I sat and I was like, what do I do? Like, how do I figure this out? And like, so I went through everything in my head. What can I change my life? And because I had been doing this job for so long, it wasn't an option basically. So I'm like living in this atmosphere with like bad hours and high stress, and dealing with people like Steve Wins every day, and these billionaire clientele, and egomaniac DJs and all this stuff. And I was like, okay, the one thing I know I can fix in my life is my diet. So I was like, cut drinking out totally. Not recreational, not social, just get it out of my life. It's like such a negative, poisonous thing, even though that's what I sold was alcohol,
Right.
So then I was like, okay, what's the other thing I can do that's I can actually change? And my base, like I said, my father was very health conscious in my family because they're hippies, like growing your own food and all that stuff. So I was like, I can change my diet. That's one thing that'll make my body feel better, And so I changed my diet. I was a vegan. I've been, on this diet for like, I don't call it diet, it's lifestyle change. For like the last 7 years, basically, I've been, eating super clean, just vegetables. I went on a raw diet first, where I just ate, raw vegetables for like 3 months. I lost a ton of weight. That was like good and bad weight. So I started, eating different things and trying to figure it out. And then here I am. I mean, I just built this goal next. It's like, okay, I have this time left at the win, a 10-year contract or whatever. And I was, 5 years away. And what's after this 5 years? And I wanted something bigger and better. And then the last year I was like stressed out. Like, what do I do now? Like, where am I going? What am I doing? Like, I don't want to be here anymore. I don't want to be an executive at the Win. It's nothing more I can grow at the Win. Like I have control of the biggest nightclubs. I'm making really good money, more than most executives there. And where do I go from here? And then this just happened where Andrew Pascal, called me one day, and I was like, wow, this is like, how's this happen?
Right.
And offered me a partnership, equity and stuff in this new hotel, and to run all the nightlife and social and all that stuff. And it was like, it just happened, it just, like I said, like if you're good to people and you have a good reputation and you work really hard, people want you, like you're in demand basically, if you're negative and you have a bad reputation and stuff like that, and maybe you're successful, some people just don't want to be around you. But if you have everything working together, then, you have a lot more options,
Yeah, I feel like once you make that definite decision in your life as to what's going to be the new path and what direction you want to go in with absolute certainty, it's that manifestation factor. It just starts to unfold. And there's really no way to describe how it works, except for when you're in those shoes and how it works, you get it. And whoever else it's happened for, they also understand, so you can have the conversation with them. But it comes from work, you know, and I always say that the universe rewards the people who work hard. And for you, it seems like it's no different. You actually took a question right out of my notes. I was going to ask you about what happened at that time. In fact, the question was, what was going on in your head when your brother and Victor were parting ways with the win and excess interest, and you kind of got into it. What was there a little bit more to that, or was that like that? Obviously, you just said it was a very troubling time.
Yeah, I mean, it was like we were at the top of our game. You know, we had like building a new beach club. We had like all these things happening in LA. We had offers around the country to do bars and nightclubs, and we had Vegas by the balls. You know, we had the day club. We were moving into the day life for the beach clubs. We had restaurants. We had nightclubs. We had after hours. You know, we were like we owned everything, and I think it's like for some people in some situations, it's not like it's not who you are, it's how you react in situations. And I think in some stuff, like people let things get out of perspective, and things got out of hand a little bit, and you know, people made poor decisions, and people made you know I hate to say, or took negatively about anybody, but like, you know, my other partner Victor was like, you know, he has an ego, and you know, and he was like very outspoken and passionate. So that created issues with, you know, our group and stuff, and not just with Steve and his other partners, but with us, you know, inside. And I think for a successful business, when you have partners, you have to be so strong together and have a great vision together and be on the same page all the time. It's so important, even if you have disagreements, whatever it is. But at the end of the day, if you're not strong, like you don't have a great core, then you know you're doomed basically.
Right.
And I think at the time, you know, we just didn't have. I think that it was like a band-aid for the 10, 11 years I was with Victor, that I ended up, you know, it just wasn't right. It was my brother and I always making sacrifices for him, and at a point like you need to grow out of that, you know. And there was more. It was like more internal problems before that even happened with Victor. You know, we're like, you know, I was a 50% owner at Dre's Los Angeles, and you know, I left, and he kind of like kicked me out because I wouldn't sign a contract with him, because the contract he gave me was like terrible, and you know, it was just got a lot of stuff that wasn't right, and we were disagreeing with a lot of things with each other. And when it happened, it was, you know, more of like it needed to happen for him to do his thing and me to do mine, you know. And my brother went on his way to open, you know, nightclubs in LA, and he opened a nightclub in Miami, and he went to, you know, Abu Dhabi. So he got like tons of experience that I never have, or would never even gotten without, you know, him being around. Basically, like, to open and start things from scratch is like, you know, a huge thing. He did it a few times, you know, and luckily we're working together again because I have him to lean on in so many different ways, you know, and support and trust in a relationship and partnership like this is like everything.
Yeah, I look forward. I've been talking to your brother too, and I look forward to interviewing him as well. I can't wait to. You know, maybe one day we can actually get the two of you together in the same room, and we can do a live video one. I think that would be great.
That wouldn't be too hard since I see him every day. You know.
Oh, perfect. Well, there we go. So let me ask you this question: amidst all of that, and that transition period, what was the next step? Like, what was going on? And at that point, because you then became the sole proprietor, owner, managing partner of Excess, were you scared of that? Were you fearful, or were you just like, okay, this is all I've got?
I was so pumped.
You're pumped.
So pumped. Oh my God. I mean, I was sad that my brother was gone. But I was pumped that I was like, wow, like, because I worked really hard, you know, and I think that a lot of the like relationships were based on, you know, things that my brother and I were working on together, you know, less our other partner, and ideas and stuff, and ideas like that Victor he wouldn't allow us to grow. He like saw things, you know, he's older, he's in his 60s or whatever. Yeah. And he's like, this is how it has to happen. And things for him to grow. He has a great, you know, I'm not saying he's not like a great person, or, you know, he's a great vision. He's really, you know, very, very intelligent. But he's stubborn, and he's, you know, and there's ego involved. So our opinions weren't always, recognized. And then when he left, obviously, I was able to like kind of grow the business from doing like, $55 million to, $100 million.
That's a huge jump, dude.
I mean, awesome. You were there. You saw the difference when,
mm-hmm.
the first, year and a half to the last, 5 years, where it was just like you're, not selling half the tables to selling out when we had 80 to selling 250 tables. We had like create more space and grow the area, and and it was insane. And the brand got bigger and everything else, So
there was a year where I remember that you did such a great job of getting every single DJ to play at XS. I mean, that was the only place that they could play. I mean, Calvin Harris, Tiesto, Avicii, I mean, all these guys. And I remember working, and like there was not a bad night ever for that entire year. Obviously, I think that was before they opened up Pakistan and Omnia, clearly. But that was such a memorable experience for me. And I think that's kind of what catapulted. I mean, you would know better than I would, but is that kind of what the timeline of that was?
For DJs or for the nightclub?
For both, actually.
For nightlife in Las Vegas, I think one of the factors of making Vegas a more of a legit city, like recognized, was, especially in the EDM scene, was EDC coming. It's like a massive festival. It does 400,000 people, whatever, like came to Las Vegas, so it like brought more attention. And then on top of that, the year before that, we were like booking DJs, and we'd book this huge roster, but nobody really knew who DJs were really that weren't into that music. And back then it was a small niche market, and it was growing, and I knew it was growing because I would book DJs at Dre's After Hours without Victor's knowledge. Like I'd take money from like sponsors and be like, this is, a regular DJ. He had no idea who they were.
Right.
And I could tell the difference in the nights. Like I'd have massive nights with these guys, and there was like this growing culture in like New York and LA and like Chicago. And that was our clientele on these big weekends, like Labor Day weekend or Memorial Day weekend. And then I would hear it in songs, like a Britney Spears song or Justin Timberlake song or whatever it is. You can hear like these producers, like that sound was influencing Pitbull, like this really poppy music that was like top charts, was like, it had like an EDM, like EDM sound to it, and they were just singing over it, whatever. So I was like, hey, this is obviously getting bigger. And then there's some artists like, Bob Sinclair break through with some big songs, and then David Guetta had like brought it really mainstream with all his album with like, like will.i.am and all these other big pop stars. And it just like changed the scene. And that's right when we booked all these guys. We had booked, like you said, Calvin Harris, Avicii, like before they even broke, Skrillex, deadmau5, Tiesto. I think the only two big names I had in my entire roster at the time that I had like were recognizable by anybody because they had such a big brand, they'd been DJing for so long, were Tiesto and deadmau5. And then after that, it was like, Afrojack and all these other guys. And all of a sudden, because of, I think, the perfect storm with Vegas, the amount of money we put into it, with EDC, with us putting these big DJs on billboards and advertising, and like the buzz about us spending $20 million, on entertainment budget for Las Vegas. And then also Marquee, when it was after the same formula, they were like doing it at the same time. Jason even booked, I think he had like Eric Miller was his first his big act or whatever, and it just happened. It was just like this explosion, and it was on the radio, and it was like the songs, and like they went into this big thing. And now at first people were like, it won't last, it's gonna last a year, it's like shelf life is short. But these guys are the ones that make the music for the big artists. They're the producers behind, they're the guys behind the curtain, So, I mean, it was a good time for everybody. And I think that, like I said, with the economy being so bad, Vegas was super cheap. You can get rooms at like $30 a night, You can get a plane ticket into Vegas for like $50 on Frontier or whatever it is, Southwest. And you can spend $200 for the entire weekend in Vegas, where you couldn't spend that on a hotel in New York or LA. Like it's like $600 for a hotel, and not even a great one. Like you can get a 5-star luxury resort and get into a nightclub, if you're a girl, for free, because guys take you and drink a spot all night and all that stuff. And, pretty much eat for free. And like back then, because gaming was big, the formula was different, where they were like giving food out and buffets and drinks to people. to attract people. And, you know, obviously now food and beverage and the rooms and stuff like that are like more of what make Vegas, you know, the money spent in the casinos.
Right.
So anyways, all that stuff together, perfect storm happened, and it was great. I mean, there's a lot of exposure for everyone. For me, it was like building a brand for Steve Wynn. And that's when I said that, you know, I told you, like, where do I go myself? Like, it's not, like, I don't own the brand. Steve owns XS name. I'm a partner with them. But when I leave, when XS ends, what am I going to do? Like, where do I go? You know? And that's when I had to make a decision. Like, I need to figure it out above and beyond that. And I felt like leaving the Wynn was my best choice.
Wow. A lot of great stuff there, my friend. I have so many questions. And hopefully you have 2 hours, because I'm gonna try. I'm just kidding, man. I'm just totally kidding. First, you brought up Steve Wynn. Okay, clearly the man is a legend. I think his name is brought up in every successful business conversation. What would you say are the top 3 things that you learned from him in working side by side with him for so long?
Top 3. I mean, he's a perfectionist. I mean, and he's driven, and he's a winner. You know, those are the top 3 things. Yeah, he is. Sorry, another call. You there?
Yeah, I'm here.
So there's 3 things. I mean, he's like a perfectionist. Like, he has a vision for something greater and bigger, and he knows like timing and evolution, and he gets all that stuff. You know,
Right.
He knows that when things aren't working, to change it, and that he's known for that. You know, like if his rooms get a little stale and old, he's like spends the money to change it, to make it fresh. You know, he's spending, you know, millions and millions of dollars right now to renovate and change his kind of whole facade and the idea of his hotel. Now add a big massive beach club and a beach and with little boats and adding retail to the front and stuff. I mean, he's a very, very smart guy.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, I've followed the guy since he was at the Golden Nugget and all the way through what is today soon to be building the Lagoon. I'm being told true icon in terms of Vegas and worldwide for that matter. So, I mean, what an honor I'm sure it was for you to be able to work alongside him. Not very many people have that privilege. So.
No, and I was like you. Like, I moved to Vegas and I would like hear about him. You know, like all of it's like, who is this guy? He's like the most powerful guy that invented Vegas. You know, that's what you hear. It's like a legend. And then when I was able to like work with him, I was, you know, it's kind of scary. It's like, wow, like what do you do? Like, what do you say? You know, it's intimidating you know, really it is. And even today I'm intimidated by him. That he's just like, you know, he's like such a force, you know,
right.
He's such a presence. And when he speaks, he like, you know, it's like, it's perfected, you know?
Did he have some words with you before you decided to leave and have a parting conversation?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He did, actually. Yeah.
Did he have some good things to say?
We won't talk about that. It's not a conversation probably to have right now, but yeah, I mean, we had a good relationship for a long time, you know, and ups and downs, obviously, because nightclubs are, you know, a very, you know, they get crazy times. They're good and bad, you know. They bring good elements, which is like, you know, a lot of people to the hotel, and they have the bad elements where you have people that are like really drunk, acting stupid, you know.
Sure. So is there anything nowadays that you miss about operating those venues?
I don't. You know, it was like I was bored at the end. You know?
Right.
I was like, I'd show up to work and I'd go to. I mean, the worst part was like working all night and then having to go to meetings the next day in the morning. And it was just like so tiring, and my schedule was so messed up. And I think being able to like sleep at night again and wake up during the day and like feeling normal, and you know, it feel great. Like I feel better, like a better person. I feel healthier. My mind is more clear. I feel like I'm growing. I've learned so much from Andrew Pascal, who's Steve Wynn's nephew, and he was there from day one to win and open the hotel, and you know, he's like a hero. The guy, like everybody followed him from wherever he was that he worked with people before to this place now, you know. And he is like a true visionary for the future. He's like a younger version, and he's like incredible. So like the only regrets I have is like is I miss some of my friends, you know, and my staff and stuff.
Right. And I'm sure you do a good job of keeping in touch with those people, right? Because, you know, Vegas is small and everybody's
Yeah,
always out and about and staying in touch. But,
such a small city. Yeah, you see everybody all the time. And I got like Facebook. I never had Facebook before and stuff like that. And I got like Facebook to keep in touch with people and all that stuff, you know.
I'm sure a lot of people are very proud of you, man, and you know, excited to see what this next venture has in store for you.
I'm excited.
I bet. So let me ask you, what are 3 things that people don't know about you? Because you've been in the public eye for a long time, done a lot of interviews, done a lot of communicating. There's got to be some things that are hidden there underside.
So I've been married twice, in a drive-through wedding, one, and a helicopter, both annulled.
Okay.
So those are things like, you know, you're young and have fun. So I've never married, like, you know, like I've been married, but not, you know, because you're annulled or whatever. So that happened obviously right away afterwards. Another thing is I have a 22-year-old son. He lives in Las Vegas. His name is Gabriel. He works at a place called STK. And what's the third one? Something else people would know. I'm pretty open about myself, you know. I don't know the third thing.
Well, I think that being open about yourself is something that we hinted at earlier. Like that's what allows you to earn more trust from people. The more open you are, the more vulnerable, the more that you open yourself up to being truthful, the more people are respectful of you. And that's like the gold that I think a lot of people miss in life. And because of that, they don't ever have the surrounding or circles of influences that they want.
I agree. I think there's like a good thing about being mysterious, and I think there's, you know, a great thing about being open. And you hit it on the head when you said that, you know, people trust you more, and it makes you more of a genuine person and real. The good, like being mysterious to me is like not talking too much, and like that's being a good mysterious, you know. But yeah, I agree with you. But the third thing, I can't think of anything right now, to be honest.
Don't worry. Two's good, my man. Two works just fine.
All right.
So let me ask you this question. As a shy introvert, how do you balance or how do you manage that particular way of life and be so involved in such a social scene and in positions where you need to be a highly effective communicator?
It's like, honestly, it's a job to me. It's like not fun to be in public.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I look at it as like something I have to do, which makes it even harder because it builds just like it's bigger and bigger and bigger, and I get more anxiety and stuff, you know. But it's like, you know, being out and seeing people and meeting people and, you know, keeping in touch and all that stuff is important. It's part of what makes you, you know, people relevant, really, you know. Relevancy is everything, and it's like I don't know how to explain it. Like it's like pop culture, you know. Like one day, you know, this singer is hot. He has like a big song, and the next 2 months, 5 other people have big songs, and everybody forgets about them. So it's important to like stay, you know, relevant. And when you're relevant, you have, you know, more success if it's in a positive way, obviously.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it's a job basically, and it's hard. It's hard, you know. What helped me a lot, I think, in the beginning was, I didn't realize I was an introvert. I just thought I was like shy and didn't, you know, come to myself, whatever. But I worked at a restaurant. My first restaurant I worked at, I was like put in a position as a host, and at the host position, you have to like, I was a greeter. They put me in the very front of the restaurant, you know, and like the walkway, and I had to like engage in people and make eye contact and speak to them and like pretend, you know, I pretend I care, like I try to care and, you know, give them, you know, tell them what they want to hear basically in a way that you look at when you do care. So that helped my base a lot, you know, as far as the hospitality side goes.
Right.
So that was like the beginning of it, and then just kind of grew from there. And then, like I said, like me wanting to be, you know, like a helpful person or a people pleaser, I think that helps me on that side of it, you know. So that kind of, it's weird because my brother was always the operator and I've always been like the marketing face guy. but it's weird how that worked out because I'm not. Like he's way more, extrovert, and he's like way more like outgoing and wants to be like seen and all that stuff. And I don't, but it's probably a good combination for us. Cause if I was one hidden, I'd probably be in like the fucking closet, doing the paperwork every night, like in the back,
right.
hiding away from everybody. And he'd probably be like out, like, raging and stuff,
Yeah,
so
totally, man.
It worked out.
There's nothing wrong with being an introvert, man. I tell people I know exactly what it's like. In fact, I call myself a hybrid. I love to be in my own little sanctuary. I have no problem being alone. In fact, I go to movies every week by myself. I go out and do everything almost by myself. But I also know that I have a good way of. I love people, like you said, just like you. I love being around people, and when they're around me, I can talk to them, and I'm there. It's finding out, what works for you, and that's part of that process of just learning what is the best path, I guess I can say, on the journey of life. And so it's neat, man. I'm glad you're opening up for us, because I know a lot of people are going to love to hear all this great stuff that you're saying. So appreciate that, my man.
I'd be surprised that you're saying that you're like a hybrid, because you seem like so, well-spoken and happy, and like you're very open to. So it's a good quality. You have a good quality, that's for sure.
It's part, like I said, it's half that, and then it's half like I'm okay with being by myself, and it means being quiet in my own. I don't need a person to tag alongside me, to join me, to find my peace and my happiness. I've learned that comes from the inside of myself, and I can develop that from within all the time. So knowing how to do that really allows me to just be me, which I think is awesome. So
that's great.
Because you're so involved, you talk about pop culture. You've obviously got a ton of friends that are, huge celebrities. I wanted to ask you this question. I wrote this question down, and I want to see if you got an answer for it. I'm sure you do. Really good one on top of that. But what is it about fame that many people who get it can't handle? What have you seen with that, and how do you think that you could describe that?
It's a personality type,
mm-hmm.
to be honest. The people that can't handle it, there's probably different situations, like as like children and child stars, they're, put in a position where they're never told no, and they're like given everything, and they don't understand the consequence of certain things,
Mm-hmm.
There's no like, for everything you do, there's a consequence, if it's good or bad. And those kids, I guess, if they're not raised properly, or they're not like, I'm not saying they're smart enough, but they don't have like that side of it's introvert or extrovert or whatever it is that kind of keeps them sane, is a big part of it. Like we talked about, a family thing is huge. I think if the people are older, like I know some DJs that are like super introvert and super famous too, like Avicii, where he just doesn't want to be, he just doesn't like it. He just generally does not want to be famous. He doesn't want to be in the public eye. He doesn't want to answer questions. He wants to be around his friends only. He wants, his own time. He loves people. He's like the most genuine person you'll ever meet. He just doesn't want to be famous. That's it, and he has problems with it. And when he was like forced to be in the public eye and DJ and like answer questions and be like on the red carpets and do radio interviews or TV shows and stuff like that, like affected him so much that he would hide it by doing drinking or other things that would, kind of self-medicate.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And then that just there, it just, we talked about earlier, like doing the drinking and then the partying and stuff like that just changes everything in your life. It's just like you lose perspective and you like go into a hole basically. And even your friends don't matter, your family doesn't matter. Like you just kind of go and it's like you're lost. And I think that happens to a lot of people, or they're good at everything and they just party. They just don't know the consequences of partying, and they get like, then everything just falls apart. I mean, really the drugs and alcohol and stuff are like, alcohol in moderation, whatever is, I think, okay. But, if you do it too much and it's like, you're doomed, I see it every day. Like I've been in this business for 20 years. I see what happens and the consequence of people that drink too much or party too much or do too much drugs. Like they have a short, shelf life.
Right.
I've worked with people. I've had family. I see it with customers. And like it's like a known fact. In our business, as like our customers don't last longer than 2 years. The good ones, and we look at the good customers, the guys that come back all the time and spend a bunch of money on alcohol, you know,
Right.
and party a lot. So, you know, it's like just keeping things in, you know, in moderation and taking care of yourself.
Sadly, it becomes part of the process. I feel like, you know, going to Vegas. And listen, I've talked about this in my book. I've talked about it openly. I used to give people drugs when they came to town. That's the first thing that they wanted more over than anything. And without that, they couldn't have a good time. And it's no surprise that that's the way that everybody parties now. But to have the self-discipline, to be able to say that you don't need that, to have that same enjoyable and pleasurable moment in the nightclub, because I think the experience is great, dude. Like, I still love the music. In fact, I learned everything that I know about EDM and the culture of music by working in excess and being around it. I'm the biggest fan. I get ready for my podcast and I pump up to EDM. Like, that's what drives me. I know what it's like. I also know now what it's like to go out and not need to have a drink, to pop a Molly, to have a line of cocaine, and to still have the same fun. Because as I talked about earlier, I can find new rewarding experiences that come from within and appreciate all of what the creative side of it is and enjoy it from that place versus needing to get, I guess you could say, fucked up and party. So it's hard. And having said that, how do you stay disciplined with all of that around you constantly? What's your plan to say, I can't, I've got something more important to focus on. I've got bigger goals, dreams. I've got responsibilities that aren't just like day to day. These are, you know, corporate responsibilities at that.
There's several reasons. I think the first one is from like my childhood and seeing, you know, the people around me like fall apart from doing drugs and hard drugs and all that stuff, and how it starts and how it ends really. So that's a big part of it. And then, you know, I've been in situations too. When I first moved to Vegas, I was like going out every night. I wanted to like promote my bar. So I was like at every nightclub and meeting people and networking. And the only way, you know, I was like, I had a couple drinks and I had a couple more drinks. And I was like, you know, after like a few months of that, I was like, realized that I wasn't happy until I got to the club and had a drink. And I was like, then I realized, okay, that's a problem, you know, for myself. Like, if I am not even happy until I have a drink, then I'm probably maybe an alcoholic or a borderline alcoholic. So I was like, I need to stop. So I was over after that. I was like, ended. I'm like, I'm not drinking again. I didn't drink after that for like, you know, 15 years or whatever.
Wow.
You know, 14 years. The first time I drank again, I was like, I think it was my 32nd birthday. So it was like not 15 years. It was good, you know, 11 years. And then the third reason is like, you know, just keeping things in perspective. Like, it's a look, like it's an image, and will people take me seriously if I'm drunk or drinking?
Right.
Like, yeah, everybody wants you to drink, like have a drink, have a shot.
Right.
You know, they're all pushing it on you. But then, you know, it's like, I always felt like when I, like at the end of the day, like if they don't take no for an answer, I'm like, listen, I don't drink. I'm not trying to push, you know, something that you don't like on you. Like, you know, something that I enjoy, you may not like, I'm not gonna make you do it. And they're like, they get it, you know?
Right.
So it's just, and they respect it. And they look at you as like a businessman, you know, like, would you ever do business with a guy that, you know, is like a, you know, a party animal? Like, you're like, you might, but at the end of the day, you like, you know, you're going to have like second guesses too, you know?
Yeah.
And people wouldn't recommend you as like being, you know, like a, you know, I don't know. It's just like, if you have one drink, people think you're a drinker, you know?
Sure.
If you do Molly one time, people are going to think you're a party animal, you know, like you're a raver. If you do cocaine, you're a drug addict, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's one time, it's a bad look, and you never lose that, you know?
Right. There's that point in there, like where you just said, it's like they push you and they push you and they want to really test to see how fragile you are. And if you'll break, then they win. But the more that they try to push you and the more disciplined that you are, and you say no, if it's 1 week and it's next week, and then finally they just stop asking you. It's just like it goes away because they know that you're strong enough to do it. And then what happens is they start to respect you, and then they want to start to do what you're doing because they see that you're living life from a different place, a much more enjoyable place.
And they also defend you. Like when somebody else says, hey, let's have a drink. They're like, no, he doesn't drink.
Right, exactly.
Like they do it for you, you know?
Yeah, they're part of the camp now.
and you know, another thing is like, if you have like a casual drink sometimes, like it never ends in the business, you know? Like it's like you have a drink at dinner, then you have another one at the club, then you have another one when your friends want a shot, and then this person comes in town, you know, like, and you have hundreds of friends that always want to drink, you know?
Man, I get it.
So it's like when, you know, there's like either you drink or you don't in the business. Right. It's not like any other business.
And let's tell the world that life is really good without alcohol. I
It's
tell
the
you
best. I mean, you wake up feeling way better about
that.
and just in general, your body feels better. Your mind's a lot more clear. Your memory is much, much better. I mean,
Yeah, I don't miss those days where I missed days because I was hungover, sleeping all day. You know, a whole day goes by and you're like, wow, that's my day. It actually is a sickening thought. Oh man, let me ask you this question. Who are your best friends in your life? And you've got such a huge circle of people that you're probably acquainted with, but like the foundation of your friendships, who are they and why are they your best friends?
I mean, I would say my best friends are probably, some guys I grew up with, like when I was very young, because they, they're there for the reason that, no other reason that you guys are good friends, they don't expect anything from me. They never asked anything from me. My brother, obviously, my friend Eric, a couple friends, like I said, where I grew up. And then a couple of guys, I have close that I worked with for a long time, that I trust. And having, I mean, I know a lot of people. I have a ton of friends. I call 1,000 people my friends,
Right.
And I respect a lot of people, but there's, I guess, just different levels of friends. And my closest ones are people I grew up with.
Yeah, man, the friendship, the connection, the love and the connection.
It's a bond. Yeah, like they're a family. When I had, when things were bad, they're my family, and that's how I look at it. Like when I didn't have, I had nothing, and it was, at a rougher, upbringing. They're still my friends, and they stood beside me,
Good, man. I'm glad to be an acquaintance. It's humbling to have you here and to have you chatting to learn more about you. So one thing I love about doing this show is that I meet with so many new people that have done so many wonderful things in their own respect, and I have such an opportunity to learn, and I love to learn, and learning from another human being is a huge joy in my life. So again, man, thank you for that. We're almost done, man. We're getting close. Do you have any daily non-negotiables as far as what your daily habits might be? I mean, is there some routine that you have that you just got to do that makes you get your day going?
Jiu-jitsu is like my one thing that I feel I have to do. Like when I don't do it, I feel so guilty, I feel guilty about just not as a health reason, and then guilty to the guy that teaches me, that's my one thing. And then obviously my diet is everything, how I eat, no sugars, no empty carbs. And I think another one would be sleep. It's important, 8 hours a day.
Right.
That's a big one for me. At least, around there, 7 to 8 hours. And then, I mean, that's it. I mean, it's important to talk to your family, as much as you can, and people that you love and you're close to.
I agree,
if it's
man.
even a message, it's like a text message or whatever it is, to send one out and just say, to check on them or whatever it is everything.
Yeah, it's some of the clients that I work with coaching, and one of the biggest things I talk about is love and connecting to the family. And I'm like, well, how often do you text your mom and tell her you love her? How often do you text your father and tell him? And it's usually a guy, and it's like, I don't do that. I'm like, dude, if you do that, watch the response you get. You'll probably end up in tears when you send it, and then you probably get a response back that'll get you in tears on top of that. So
yeah, I mean, it feels good.
It does. It's exactly what it is. It feels good. It's the right thing to do, and yet I don't understand why so many people don't do it because they're scared.
Yeah.
All right. So we're moving forward. The new thing. You are in charge of the social experience at the new property. I have this question that I wanted to ask you because it involves everything creative. You are in charge of that whole experience and creating it. So what do you look to for your creative inspiration?
I aspire to be people. I aspire to be like people that are, better than me, I think, or greater than me, that I look up to. And right now, it's the guy Andrew Pascal. He's the greatest guy in the world. He's just the nicest, most humble. He cares about people. He's so soft spoken. I mean, he's 1,000 times nicer than me. And he is just everything. He's successful in different ways, not just resorts, and he has like technology stuff, and you know, his family and everything else. You know, that's you know, that's what I do. Is I love people that I would, you know, I want to be like, basically. You know,
Right.
And it's a goal again at the end of the day. You know.
Yeah, Andrew Pascal was once the man in charge over at the Wynn too. So at one point,
Yeah.
he was around in the day that I was there, and I think when the property first opened, right when Encore first opened, anyway.
Yeah.
That's
when he was there for I think 6 years. Yeah.
I know you guys are going to do many great things over there, man. I'm excited to see the property. I know it's not that big of a lot, right? I mean, so you guys are going to have.
No, it's big. It's 36 acres. Yeah, it's
okay.
really big. Yeah.
I'm excited to see how that comes. So 3 years. So what happens? What's happening today, moving forward with you, as far as executing this thing? Is there still some traveling and some fun involved, or are you guys hitting the ground hard right now and starting?
Man, it's all fun. Like, your job should be something that you love, and I love my job. I love my career. I love being with people I work with, and you know, and the traveling. Obviously, I love doing that. So I have the, you know, I'm able to do that, which is awesome. And it's about like learning new things and experiencing new things and learning about people and the next trend. You know, what happens with bars, what happens with nightclubs, what happens with like social experiences. Design, I've learned a lot about, you know, which I thought I knew a lot until I came here, about like my own personal taste, which is, you know, way beyond what Andrew had. He's incredible at it. He's just, you know, on top of the game. And then, you know, that's it. I you know, wait around until we break ground and we get the designers in, the final stage of that, design it, and then, you know, we like hunker down and like, you know, do operations and hire our staff and all that stuff. You know, when we open, it's like, you know, 24/7 for a year probably.
Yeah, totally, man.
Living at the hotel, you know.
Good. Happy for you, man. Can't wait to see what transpires out of that big project. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be great for the city.
Yeah,
as I said, sure. I feel like the Strip is my backyard, so I take ownership in that. So whenever a new property comes around, I'm like, this is my backyard. Who do I get to show this one to now? You know?
Yeah, man. There's like a lot of stuff happening now. There's like, you know, Fontainebleau is gonna, you know, eventually somebody's gonna buy that and, you know, reinvent it. There's Resort World with the Malaysian guys. I mean, the guys from Indonesia, Malaysian, whatever, Singapore guys. Then there's, you know, us. It's like, you know, we're 2.4. They're like 3 billion.
Right.
There's the new stadium, which is like $1 billion or 2 billion or something like that. There's a ton of things happening now, you know. So Vegas is going to grow really quick next year. So we have hockey coming up. We have football. We have new venues. We have the T-Mobile went up, and we have another one going behind Venetian. I mean, there's a ton of stuff.
That's a partnership with Madison Square Garden Group, right? I think I read that somewhere. Yeah,
exactly.
It's going to be a huge competition to try and pull all the big acts to now. You've got Mandalay Bay, you've got the Garden, you've got the Mobile Arena, you're going to have this new one. I mean, you got the new Monte Carlo guy going up too, so it's going to be pretty competitive. But that's exciting, though. I mean, that's Vegas, and it's exciting to be a part of that too. So, and for you, man, I know you're as much of a part of it as anybody else. So, 2 last questions, my man. Almost done. Because you're so involved in the music scene and been a huge influence with this boom, I guess you could say, over the last several years, I got to ask you who your favorite DJ is.
I'm gonna run to the bathroom real quick, and I'll answer that when I get back.
Yeah, go ahead, man. Go ahead. Go for it.
So hold on.
Yeah, you got it. You guys have a few seconds to wait, and you're stuck here with me. This is the first, but great guy Jesse is, and I'm humbled and blessed to be able to have him on the show. If you guys have ever been to Vegas, I'm sure you're aware of Excess Nightclub, Tryst Nightclub, Dre's Los Angeles. That man was involved in everything with every one of those venues, every step of the way, and is now moving on to bigger and better things. And what an honor it is to have him share his message here with us today. So I hope that you guys can really take some good stuff away from that. It's going to be good. He's pretty good. He actually answered a few of my questions before I even got a chance to ask them. So That was pretty intuitive. I feel like he did a good job of reading my mind. I have my book here, my notes, which I always have and prepare with before any podcast interview. So pretty interesting. So. And if you listen to this, please go over to iTunes. If you're watching on YouTube, leave comments, leave a review. I love the feedback. The feedback is so important. It helps me think of some things that I can do better based on what your suggestions are. Because at the end of the day, I always want to continue to make these things the very best that they can be for you. This is a fun experience for me and quite a unique experience because it's still pretty brand new. But at the end of the day, I want this to go on for as long as it can go until the day that I basically disappear off this earth, which I have a lot of years to go. But let's do this together. Let's make this the best that we can for ourselves. If you're not up to speed, Jesse went to the restroom, and we are taking a few second break before he comes back to answer a few of the last questions. There he is.
Yo.
My man. Feel better?
Back.
Good, man. Good. Amazing. I was just doing some commentary to keep the audience entertained while you stepped away.
Awesome. So my DJ choice, I think you have to be more specific on, is it
who do you most
talent? Is it like who I respect the most? Is it who I think works the hardest? Is it the music? I mean,
well, there you go. You just did it for us. Who you respect the most? Who works the hardest? Whose music? And who of all the DJs is your closest friend? How about we do those four?
Okay, so I think they all work really hard, to be honest, because they have a hard lifestyle. Yeah, it's like to travel, and I don't know how many people actually experience that or listening, but to travel every day and be in an airplane, it sounds fun or whatever, but if you're actually doing it, it's fun getting to the place and getting to the hotel and like staying for a while. But if you have to do it every day, like you pack and you unpack, you have to jump on a plane and in the airport and go through security and all that stuff, it sucks. I mean, and then the time change, all that stuff, you know, and then trying to produce music and all other stuff is like, it's crazy, you know, and really with no days off. But, you know, the ones that work the hardest, I say, probably Stevie Aoki and Diplo are the ones that I think two that like just crush, you know, they work really, really hard and they travel so much and they're like hustling and they're like so driven to be successful. Those two I think are, you know, are going to be like go beyond the, you know, when the stuff kind of slows down, they're going to keep going in that direction for DJ stuff. And they'll kind of like outgrow it in different ways.
Funny you say that. I just watched.
And they're performers too. You saw Aoki's his thing, his documentary.
His documentary, exactly. Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
It's good. It's good. I knew most of his story because him and I are such close friends, but so I wasn't like super interested in it after I saw it. I was like, well, you know, I knew most of it, but I think talent-wise, I think Deadmau5 is like a fucking incredible producer. I think that Avicii is like so talented. He's so talented that he's like bored with it. He doesn't even like it. That, I mean, he told me that he was like, I don't even like making music because it's not fun for me. Like, I didn't even like this, you know. I have friends that were like I went to school with that like majored in music, right, and they should be the ones doing this stuff, not me, you know. Right. It's like I just did it. It's just easy for me. He's like a savant, basically, you know. Gifted,
just God gifted.
It's gifted. And then there's like, I mean, Afrojack, he's a pretty good producer too. But those two, I think Deadmau5. Like if you listen to like the layers of music he puts together, like there's like really like layers of like different sounds, you know, and the way that you kind of like position him. He's like so many layers, and they're like so clean and they're so perfected. And then the talent wise, like being creative is like Avicii is incredible. And there's like, you know, the other guys, a lot of them are just more of they're like they're just basically guys that find other guys to make music, and they take a song or a sound and then they put together and like A&R almost, you know?
Right.
So like where they find people to do things and then they put together but they're also help producing, and they have like a guy that masters it and stuff. But those two are like the most, and then when it goes that, then music I like the most. I mean, Calvin Harris does really cool stuff too. He's like super talented. Obviously, he can sing, he can produce. He's like driven, smart, and he knows how to like live, you know, because he's like doesn't work too much, and he takes things that he can handle, and he has a good team around him. I really like his music. I like Avicii's. I'm not like a huge fan of EDM anymore because I've heard it so much. And I was for like 15, 16 years. Like I love house music. You know? But yeah, probably like that. And then I guess what was the other question? So there's like music,
friends, man.
Friends like Alesso and Avicii are probably my two best friends. Tim, Alesso, Sandro. I see him a lot, and he's like so close. Like we're very close. He's just a great guy. He's like fun. He's like 5 or whatever, but he's like 35-year-old. He's like an old soul. Great guy. And Avicii, I've known him since, I've known them both since they're like, 18, 19 years old. Tim was like one of my first friends in the industry. And just because he's so nice and genuine that he's just like, no matter what he does and how much, like I won't talk to him for 6 months and I'm like texting him, like, dude, like answer my fucking calls, but it's not me, it's everybody, He won't even talk to his parents. So like it's just, he's just, just a really good person. And then, I'm friends with all those guys though, like, Tiesto and Deadmau5 and Steve Aoki and, Steve Angelo and Grosso. And like, I've been around a lot of them and spent a lot of time with them. But obviously more quality time with the other guys.
Right. That's exciting, dude. It's a humbling experience to be here with you and to hear this.
Yeah, man, and you too. I really appreciate it. You make things really comfortable and easy to talk about. Like interviews for me aren't easy, and this has been actually really fun.
Yeah, man. I wanted to have a conversation, dude. I didn't want to come in here and hit you with a bunch of stuff that was off the radar. What I do comes from the heart, man, and I want everybody else that's on the opposite end to have that same vision of what they're talking about, coming from the heart and actually offering up something that people can take away and really get a chance to know you beyond what all the bright lights and the big buildings and all that crap is, because that's just part of life, right? It's just an outlet. But
for sure.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. So the last question is, what is your one message of inspiration for our listeners?
Is it like in like a advice meaning or like inspiration? Define that for me.
Yeah, whatever comes to the top of your mind, man. If you had to tell somebody what's the one thing maybe in their life that they should do, there's been so many. There's work hard. There's never give up. There's
happiness is everything. So whatever it is in your life, and this is what I was taught by my family, is that whatever it is you're doing, you have to be happy doing it, especially your job or your career or who you're with or your friends or wife or husband or whatever it is being happy. And if you're not happy, you shouldn't be doing it.
There you have it, man.
That's
it. I agree. Find your happiness. And if some people out there are listening, my definition of happiness is to grow, make progress in your life, and give. The more you give, the more you grow, the more happiness you'll have in your life. I promise you, if you follow that method, if you can figure out what those things are for you, you will have a much happier life.
Words of wisdom. I can't agree more.
You don't need to have the money, the car. You don't need to have all that stuff to have happiness, because there are people that have the best lives without any of it. The more connection you have to your family, the better fostered relationships that you have. The extrinsic value doesn't bring anything. It's the intrinsic. That's my last thing.
And the people know and the people don't know things, like the cars and the flashy things, and the bigger things you get, the more complicated life gets.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Jesse, my man, I want to thank you so much, dude, for being here, bro. It's been such an honor to have you, man. I had such a fun time. I, again, want to applaud you, acknowledge you, congratulate you on all the success that you've had. and for the future success and all the lives that you're going to continue to impact, man. It's such a great story, and I'm so happy for you, dude. I really am.
Thanks again, Manny. I really appreciate it.
You got it, man. Thank you.
Talk to you soon.
Absolutely.
Bye, bro.